Thank you for joining me. I know I am definitely behind on updating or just reporting or reviewing the articles that come my way when it comes to civics, both within the United States and abroad. And just again, something that's just my personal preference, something I enjoy doing, which is basically um, just looking through civic current events and how they relate, around the world and both domestically in their country. So we're going to jump right into it. This one is from MR Online. From me actually reviewing this article, we are drastically behind. This is outdated by several months. I have literally done two pre-recordings of this article, pre-recorded reviews. I've literally done two pre-recorded reviews of this article, and each time the reviews just did not work out for me where I can publish it. So I'm going live, and I have obviously there's a lot more updates regarding BRICS that have happened and transpired. But in this case, we want to make sure we go in order, at least on my end. So we're going to jump right into it. If there's any topics that you want me to review, especially when it comes to the United States, the United Kingdoms, and their urban areas, as well as African diaspora countries and their development when it comes to civics, business or economic development, as well as just social well-being, if you will. So with that said, we're going to jump right in. Thank you for following, liking, subscribing, sharing the work that I do, and donating what you felt this message was worth to you to make sure that I can continue on with this. So this is a article from, excuse me, y'all, mronline.org. Forgive me, mronline.org. And excuse me. And this discussion today is, or this review is today is BRICS expands with 9 new partner countries. Now it's half of the world's population. Again, this is outdated by the time I'm actually reviewing this article, but I wanted to go in order. This is just a topic or something when it comes to, respectfully, the global economy and the United States and the Western economy. No biggie. It's just something that, catches my attention. Respectfully, I hope and pray that all things work for good. Humanity can walk to its highest light. We can all be great neighbors to one another. Model what it's like to be a standard, individual, on this earth, in this reality, and just being a good individual and trying your best. Being patient, having compassion, forgiving one another when we fall short, holding ourselves accountable as well. Excuse me. So with that said, let's go and jump into the conversation. Shout out to Ben Norton for putting this article together. Originally published back in December 2024. This is a repost back in January 4th, 2025. So things that kind of resonate with me: capitalism, financialization, political economy, strategy, global, newswire, BRICS, because these are things that are elements that make the world go around. Respectfully, here we go. BRICS, the Global South-led Forum for Economic Cooperation, continues to grow in influence as it seeks to de-dollarize and transform the international monetary and financial system. This is why I'm bringing this to the table. This is why I'm bringing this conversation to the table. BRICS, so many words, seeks to de-dollarize and transform the international monetary and financial system. So it makes me think, commercial break me please, shout out to Joe T. Baker III, jtb3.org. Great story. And when he shared his story of perseverance, he used to say, commercial break me please, in between, sharing the story and his thoughts. So shout out to him and for bringing that to my attention. I'm not sure where he got it from, but big shout out. Commercial break me please. Now, in this particular sentence, it's saying that BRICS is looking to de-dollarize and transform the international monetary and financial system, not necessarily the United States financial system. What makes this situation unique is the United States financial system is an international part of the international process. And if you don't know how, I would suggest for you to do your research and come back with a comment on what you found so that we can all learn and dig deeper into it. So respectfully, the United States dollar plays a role in an international monetary and financial system as well as domestically. So that's why this is kind of a unique situation. Moving on. After admitting 4 new members in 2024, BRICS officially welcomes 9 new nations as partner countries on January 1st, 2025. They are Belarus, Bolivia, Cuba, Indonesia, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Thailand, Uganda, Uzbekistan. With its 9 members and 9 partners, BRICS now makes up roughly half of the global population and more than 41% of the world GDP. PPP. We'll look into that soon. This group is an economic powerhouse, including top producers of key commodities like oil, gas, grains, meat, and minerals. And that's just kind of where we are with the global, as of 2025, where we are on the global stage. And that's why I wanted to bring it to our attention, because it does respectfully affect the international markets, and it may affect your country as well. I will say, for the time of reviewing this article, there have been a lot of tariffs being pushed by the U.S. administration. I don't know the details, but as I'm reading the article, I don't know if some of those tariffs are possibly reflecting some of the decisions that these countries made when it comes to de-dollarizing and transforming the international monetary and financial system. I had no dog in this fight. I'm not, again, I'm looking for peace and leadership. Stuff happens, and this is why you have conversations. This is why you come to the table and you have individuals with the emotional intelligence to be able to represent and serve as a diplomat and ambassador for their side for a workable solution, whatever that looks like. And I'm not in a position to say what that will look like. It's just, public information. And I want to take time to review it with you, because I could have just clicked on it and went about my business. So there's a video you can check out here for more details. We're moving on. At the BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia, in 2024, 13 countries were invited to become BRICS partners, meaning they are on the path to full in the near future. 13 countries possibly on the path to full membership in the near future. I will say, it looks like the BRICS situation, the operation is running smooth in regards to, you have your partners and you have your full membership, you're going through those processes. It looks like there's no corners being cut as far as, the legitimacy of the operating process. From what I can see, I do a lot of business development, especially for startups and seed stage businesses, to include nonprofit organizations. And a lot of times, getting that momentum to have a process and a system, people, and technology in place to be able to deliver a service or provide value to the people you're prospecting to, it's a real task. And so any organization is able to put a system together where there is a input process and output. You have to I don't want to say take seriously, but that's the word that comes to my mind. Moving on, 9 of these 13 nations accepted the invitation. Remaining 4 did not give a formal response as of the end of 2024. These were Algeria, Nigeria, Turkey, Vietnam. The Russian government, which in December announced the admission of 9 new partners, emphasized that we expect that in the near future, responses will come from the other 4. BRICS, 9 members and 9 partners. Initially founded in 2009 by Brazil, Russia, India, and China, the organization grew in 2010 with the addition of South Africa. Commercial break me, please. These countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China are definitely developing countries, respectfully, in their own rights, in their areas. They're emerging if they haven't emerged already, respectfully. I would say the same about South Africa. And I'm sure that these countries may not see eye to eye in everything, but they have a common interest for whatever reason, respectfully, to de-dollarize and transform the international monetary and financial system. And so you are someone like me that's in the business of building and managing relationships and understand that relationship and managing relationships, building relationships, both directly and indirectly, play a huge role in how things move. You know, it's interesting to see, again, how the diplomats and the ambassadors, of all countries, to include the U.S. and the Western countries, are conversing with these countries, because business is still going on, other things are still going on. And so there's a lot of different angles that diplomats and ambassadors have to look at. And so you can't, lose control or overreact on one thing, because there's 10 other things with the same country you got to still deal with. And so if you're burning your bridges or making relationships harder, it makes it only easier for other opportunities to come up. And you can use that in any relationship, to include marriage, respectfully. And so moving on, at the 2023 summit in Johannesburg, South Africa, BRICS expanded again, inviting 6 more countries: Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. I respect all countries as far as, the way they move their social economic, but I do know when, people come together, it just makes it more more impactful, I would say. And so Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates have been putting in growth in their own rights, and a part of culture and history in their own rights. And so seeing, a common ground in that particular area, destabilizing or de-dollarize, de-dollarize and transform the international monetary and financial system. It's just interesting to see. Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the UAE accepted the invitation and officially became BRICS members in January 2024. Saudi Arabia still had not made a formal decision as of the end of 2024. I mean, these are big decisions. You imagine if you're a country, and you really want to stay out of it, but at the same time, you have to look out for your interest and what's going on. And that's why, people in these positions that are in these representative positions, I don't want to say I tip my hat off to you, but it's a different world. Civics, diplomatic and ambassadorship when it comes to civics, government relations, international relations. When it comes to those things, it's a science and an art and a lot of grace. Well, science, art, and a lot of grace. And, to be in these positions, to want to be in these positions, it's a lot that people take on that the everyday individual just won't ever understand or even realize is there. And I can give you at least some kind of insight, serving as someone that was elected official for a number of years and serving as a consultant in the civics arena, dealing with real estate community development, as far as real estate community development, community engagement for real estate developers, as well as elected officials that wanted to become more engaged in the community, or candidates that were running for office, or for the first time, or candidates that were incumbents and wanted to get reelected. Being around all those things, and then being a part of, directly and indirectly, those that were in office, and seeing them, go from one term to the next, being in positions where there was a, elected official in that seat, and for whatever reason, they're no longer there. So now it's a new elected official in that seat. I've been around that arena for X amount of time. And so they're new, and my name is within the area. So, the longer you're there and the more elected officials that, respectfully go through the process, the more that, I end up becoming more of a authority or influencer or, again, a consultant, if you will, just because of the longevity. So it's just a perspective that being around elected officials and knowing what, they, some of the things not all of it, but knowing some of the things they face, these are big situations and pretty big deals. And that's why I wanted to bring to your attention. Definitely want to jump into more micro conversations. This is a macro conversation, but ultimately this is a conversation that indirectly or directly will at some point, depending on the direction, could affect your country's financial economy in some kind of way, respectfully. I could be wrong about this, but it's just something I'm interested in, a cool read for me. Pray all things work for good. Moving on. Argentina, we'll start here. Saudi Arabia had not made a formal decision as of the end of 2024. Argentina initially agreed to join when it had a center-left government led by President Alberto Fernandez and Vice President Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner. However, far-right pro-U.S. leader Javier Milei, forgive me if I mispronounce anyone's name, came to power in December 2023, and he overturned the decision, blocking Argentina from joining BRICS in January 2024. Commercial break, me please. I don't know why, respectfully, the new leader, Javier Milei, made the decision, but as I can see, if I didn't know, these decisions are made at the minimum through the executive branch, from what I can see, as far as joining. And so that was a fun fact. We're going back to the article. BRIC comprises roughly half of world population. Say that again. BRICS comprises roughly half of world population. With the addition of the partner states, 9 of the 20 most populous countries on Earth are now part of BRICS. I'll read that again. With the addition of the partner states, 9 of the most populous countries on Earth are now part of BRICS. Their combined population is approximately 4 billion, or roughly half of the world population. India is the most populous country on Earth, followed by China second. Each country has more than 1.4 billion inhabitants. With nearly 290,000 citizens, Indonesia is the 4th most populous nation. Brazil is the 7th most populous country, followed by Russia in 9th, and Ethiopia in 10th. Egypt is the 14th most populous nation. Iran is the 17th, and Thailand is the 20th. The 6th most populous nation, Nigeria, was invited to join BRICS as a partner, but did not give a formal answer in 2024. So 20 countries with the largest population. Respectfully, this is why I'm covering the conversation. BRICS makes up 41% of global GDP, PPP. Let's find out what that means, if they show it or tell us. Together, the 9 BRICS members and additional 9 BRICS partners represent more than 41% of global GDP when measured at purchasing power parity. That's what PPP stands for in this article, purchasing power parity. The original 5 BRICS members made up 33.76% of world GDP in October 2024, according to IMF data. And hopefully we can look into more of IMF data moving forward. It's more of the details and going into the weeds, but it helps make these articles that we review more insightful because we have a better understanding of some of the intricacies that go within the international monetary system. Moving on. This means that the 5 founding BRICS members comprise a larger share of the global economy than the G7, which only represented 29.08% of world GDP in 2024. That's interesting because I'm not familiar with the details, but I know that the G7 meeting, which is your world leaders, if you will, or your world countries, or or culture countries, come together to have a conversation. The details of that, I don't quite know. I know it's public information for the most part, and I'll start to dive deeper into that. If you want to discuss or learn or dig deeper into the G7 and the origin, purpose, and the function, leave G7 in the comments and we can do that. But let me just read this again. This means that the 5 founding BRICS members comprise a larger share of the global economy than the G7. Moving on. This is a massive decline from 1990 when the G7 economies made up nearly 52% of the world GDP. So that's interesting to see with G7 and the decline, respectfully. I would love to see what that looked like or what the reason was for that. The main reason, here we go. The main reason for this historic shift is the enormous economic growth in China, which has become the world's only industrial superpower, responsible for 35% of global gross manufacturing production, nearly 3 times that of the United States. So much to talk about, but I'm going to move and focus on the article because things that come to my mind when it comes to the industrial industries, if you will. China, here we go, back to the article. China overtook the US to become the largest economy on earth in 2016, according to IMF data. As of October 2024, or 2024, China made up 19% of global GDP, compared to just 15% for the US. When the 4 new BRICS members that were admitted in 2024 are added, the share of global comprised by BRICS 9 members rises to 36.44%. The addition of 9 new partner states increases BRICS' share of the world GDP further to 41.41%, and that does not include Cuba, as the IMF does not have the data on the country's economy. Wow. Thoughts? Leave them in the comments. Please and thank you in advance for the comments and your thoughts being respectful, professional for those around us. U.S. GDP overstates its economic power. U.S. GDP overstates its economic power. While GDP can give a rough approximate of the influence of a country in the global economy, the measurement presents its own series of problems. GDP does not necessarily reflect the reproductive capacities of a nation. It is important to look at the sectoral composition of GDP. This is why we got to all be aware of this type of conversation, and what this is what makes the world go round. This type of conversation. In the United States, for instance, a staggering 21% of GDP comes from the FIRE sector, finance, insurance, and real estate. Another 13% of U.S. GDP consists of professional and business services, from white-collar workers like lawyers and managers. Manufacturing makes up only around 10% of U.S. GDP. And I remember, according to the history, when America was booming because of the manufacturing. And it's awesome to see, respectfully, the white-collar worker sectors booming. And it's also awesome to see sectors like FIRE booming. Very grateful. It's awesome. In addition to looking at those things, though, it could be seen as manufacturing being a essential sector, and looking at decreases and increases in that area, really changes the game, and it's just again cool to see. Moving on, another 8% of the U.S. GDP, as reported by Bureau of Economic Analysis, is imputed rental value of owner-occupied housing, or how much an owner of a house would hypothetically pay to rent a house they own and live in. This is to say, 8% of U.S. GDP does not really exist. It's merely accounting. Furthermore, approximately 18% of U.S. GDP comes from the health sector. The United States spends roughly twice as much on healthcare as the average advanced economy in the OECD, yet has some of the worst public results. Yikes. I'm going to read that again. That's kind of a low blow. Not a low blow, but OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. If you want us to jump more into the OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, leave that in the comments and we'll start to learn some more. I'll read that sentence again. The United States spends roughly twice as much on healthcare as the average advanced economy, yet has some of the worst public health results. As they say, make that make sense, respectfully. Make that make sense. I don't know, but that's what's being said. I would assume you got to tighten up. You can't spend twice as much and then not and have some of the worst results. If you were in business, respectfully, you wouldn't be in business long. You're spending twice as much and you're producing some of the worst results. You wouldn't have customers. So all this maybe plays a role. I don't know. Moving on. Just because a country has more expensive services in a given sector and thus has a higher GDP doesn't mean that its people benefit. The case of the U.S. health system is a clear example of how residents can in fact suffer greatly despite having impressive GDP statistics. And that's where I'm ignorant, respectfully, or just unaware as far as that U.S. health system. I'm not. I know it plays a big role. I'm familiar with, some of the healthcare that has been pushed or promoted through some of our recent administration, maybe like the last 4 or 5. I'm old enough to be aware. So at my age, if you will, I don't know enough though. But I would love to be able to, learn and see what that looks like. If anyone hears a beeping or a vibration in the background, it's a cell phone going off. I don't feel like touching it. We're going to continue on. So thank you for bearing with me. But definitely the U.S. health system. If the U.S. health system is a clear example of how residents, in fact, suffer greatly despite having impressive GDP statistics. I didn't know that. This is what I'm still learning. So I want to see how that works, respectfully. Makes me think of a movie. This makes me think of a movie that I watch regularly or used to watch. BRICS, a commodities powerhouse producing grains, meat, oil, gas, minerals. The people of a country can't eat their GDP. A more useful assessment of BRICS' growing economic power can be seen in the productive capacities of the economies that make up the organization. BRICS members and partners are the world's leaders in the production of crucial commodities such as cereals, meat, crude oil, natural gas, and strategic minerals like iron, ore, copper, and nickel. Gotta respect it. The main primary crops in the world, which represent more than half of the global agricultural production, are respectively sugarcane, maize, which is corn, forgive me if I mispronounced that, rice, wheat, oil, palm fruit, and potatoes, according to the UN Food and Agricultural Organization. BRICS countries dominate global production of these primary crops. I'll read that again. BRICS countries dominate the global production of these primary crops. Now, when I think of that, I think of, okay, now your competitors got to become your friends some kind of way. You can't leverage it the way you used to. You can't. BRIC countries dominate global production of these primary crops, and you have to start building relationships. And they can leverage some things. You got to stand strong on some of your values and beliefs. But ultimately, that's a powerful statement that I don't want us to dismiss. Moving on, Brazil, India, and China make up roughly 2/3 of global production of sugarcane. China and Brazil represent nearly 30% of global maize corn production. China and India produce over half of the world's rice. China, India, and Russia produce more than 40% of the world's wheat. Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand, all new BRIC partners, comprise almost 90% of global oil palm fruit production. China and India produce nearly 40% of the world's potatoes. Just your thoughts in the comments. BRICS countries likewise produce much of the world's meat. China and Brazil make up more than 20% of the global chicken production. China produces more than 40% of the world's pork. Brazil and China make up more than 20% of global beef production. China dominates aquaculture, production of seafood, making up nearly 60% of global output. I'll read that again. China dominates aquaculture production of seafood, making up nearly 60% of global output. That's amazing to see. Combined with India and Indonesia, they account for more than 70%. BRICS countries likewise make up more than half of the world's production of hen eggs. China alone produces 34%. BRICS is now an energy powerhouse as well. That's the direction of things are going. And here's a sentence that says BRICS is now an energy powerhouse as well. Powerhouse, for those that don't know, a person or thing of great energy, strength, or power. Another term for power plant. Moving on. China is leading the world's transition of renewable energy. I'm not knocking anyone's hustle. I'm great to see, production and innovation. That's it's awesome. You can't. I don't know the details, and I pray that these things that are being produced can overall help, the world, the people, the plants, the animals, the ecosystem, all those things. But ultimately, I'm not here to knock anyone's hustle or what the services they're doing or the movements they're making. And so China is leading the world's transition to renewable energy. China is building twice as much solar and wind power capacity as the rest of the world combined. It's real stuff. BRICS countries also play a major role in global production of crude oil. 5 of the world's top 10 producers of crude oil are in BRICS, including Russia 3rd, China 4th, and Iran 7th, and UAE 8th, and Brazil 9th. I messed that whole sentence up. I'll read it again. Excuse me. 5 of the world's top 10 producers of crude oil are in BRICS, including Russia 3rd, China 4th, Iran 7th, the UAE 8th, and Brazil 9th. BRICS nations are important in the global natural gas industry. Top natural gas producers in BRICS include Russia 2nd, Iran 3rd, China 8th, the UAE 10th, Indonesia 11th, and Malaysia 15th. Venezuela, a major producer of oil and gas, was initially offered BRICS membership, but Brazil vetoed the invitation at the 2024 summit in Russia, which caused an international scandal. Wow. I would love to look into that more because all this plays a role to some degree. Excuse me. 2024 summit in Russia caused an international scandal. When it comes to strategic minerals, BRICS is, again, highly influential. BRICS countries are among the world's leading producers of iron ore, including Brazil 2nd, China 3rd, India 4th, Russia 5th, South Africa 8th, Kazakhstan 9th, and Iran 10th. When it comes to the global copper production, BRICS members are also very important, including China 3rd, Russia 7th, Indonesia 9th, and Kazakhstan 12th. The admission of Indonesia as partner likewise means that the world's only nickel superpower is now part of BRICS, along with other important nickel producers like Russia 3rd, China 7th, Brazil 8th, and Cuba 9th. Again, if you see or if you hear a vibration or buzzing going on in the background, it's a cell phone going off. I'm not going to press the button to turn it off right now. Thank you for your patience. Moving on. What these statistics demonstrate is that BRICS has become one of the most important organizations on earth. I'll read that half sentence again. What these statistics demonstrate is that BRICS has become one of the most important organizations on earth, bringing together nations with massive populations, enormous economies, and incredible productive capacities. I think this sentence sums up why I wanted to highlight this article, review this article, created by our friend Ben Norton. That's why I wanted to highlight this article, created by our friend Ben. BRICS has become one of the most important organizations on earth, bringing together nations with massive populations, enormous economies, and incredible production. If I can get a representative of BRICS to join my podcast, join me on the podcast, so we can talk about some of these things, I definitely am going to do that. I'll see if I can reach out, but why not? Continuing on with the article, if BRICS countries can successfully coordinate and take collective action, they will change the world. This is why I cover these kind of stories. I'm interested in a lot of things, and this is one of them. If BRICS countries can successfully coordinate and take collective action, they will change the world. Let me know what you think about this awesome article. Thank you, Ben, for putting this article together. Thank you all for your patience of me reviewing this article. Like I said, I should have done this months ago. I tried, and stuff happens. Let me know what you think. Thank you again for liking, subscribing, following, all those good things, and donating in the amount you felt. Message thank you for your monetary donation. The amount you felt this message was worth to you, so we can continue to keep this information going. And I look forward to connecting with you in the next video. Peace.